Okay, so now we're in the next section where we're going to talk about and break down what requests are when it talks about HTTP. So if you're new to this channel and you would like to follow along with the curriculum, the link is in the description. Okay, let's get into it. Request. HTTP requests must conform to the structure outlined by the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C. So if I click on that link and I open that up in the next tab over here, this is what this looks like, W3C, this right here. Now notice, don't get this confused with the W3C school. This is W3C, and this is the standard that you want to follow. This is some documentation. This is some great information for you to check out. So I highly recommend that you go through and get familiar with this documentation. Make sure that you go ahead and not subscribe to it, but go ahead and bookmark this, because this is one of your tools. So here, we'll discuss the most important and most commonly used aspects of HTTP request structures. A generic HTTP request looks like this. This is a request. It's a GET. So that means if it's a GET, we're talking about wanting to request something. So we're asking, it's one of the HTTP verbs. It's an action. And it has the GET, the blog, the HTTP.1.1. 1.1, I'm sorry. So if you go through it, get familiar with this, how this looks. This is generic HTTP. Now, the structure has three components. We have a request line. The first line in the request line, it specifies the request method. That's why we call it a verb, because verbs are actions. Path and HTTP version being used. That's this right here. The request header. This is important as well. From line 2 until the first blank line, which from here to here. This blank line means something. You need to have that in there. Request headers are included as a series of key value pairs, one per line. As you can see, host is a key. The pair is www.launchcode.org. So you already understand this. We've already talked about key value pairs, which are in objects. Blank line, this signifies the end of the request header. If you don't have that end, it's going to run on. You need that blank line. Request body, which is optional. Below the blank line, the request body takes up the remainder of the HTTP request. So let's go over this. Request methods. The request line is minimal. We have already discussed the path, which specifies the resource being requested. The first part of the request line, the request method, is new to us. A request method specifies the type of action to be carried out on a requested resource. HTTP defines 8 methods. Here, let's go over there and let's look at what these 8 methods are. Request, we have GET, head, post, put, delete, connect, option, trace, patch. Again, this is some information you definitely want to get familiar with. Make sure you click on it. This is Wikipedia. Bookmark this so you can go to this section and kind of read up on it. It's going to be very helpful, especially when it's time to do CRUD, which means create, read, update, and delete. We are going to use these methods. You won't use all of them, but you will be using quite a few. The main ones you're going to be using is GET, post, put, delete, and patch. Those are the ones that you're going to really use more of, but kind of read up on the other ones to kind of get an understanding of what, if you ever run across this term, you can have an idea of what it means. Now, of which we will only need to use 2, GET and post. So those GET and post are what we're doing to request. We're getting information and we're posting information. The GET method. Using the GET method tells the server that we want to simply retrieve the resource. This is the most commonly used method. It is used to request for HTML pages, CSS, and JS files. And images, when you click on a link in a web page, you are triggering a GET request for the link page. GET requests generally do not have a body. Now understand that generally they don't have bodies, so again that body is optional with the GET, since they are asking rather than sending for information. GET requests are usually used for loading the page after typing an address into the browser address bar, conducting and searching via a search engine, and loading a page after clicking on a link. This is why I say this information right here, let me open it up for you in your console over here in the network. This network right here, if I hit this refresh button, it goes through, like I showed you in the last video, it refreshed the page and it goes through and it gets requests. So when I did that, it did a request, a GET, and it came back with all of this information that we're looking for, and we're getting 200s, which we will go over those status codes, what they mean later. All right, so let me close that. So when I come back down here, and after we did that, let's talk about the post method. Using the post method tells the server that we want to create new data on the server. That means you want to create something that makes sense, post something. I want to post something to the server. As you will learn in the next chapter, post is used when submitting a form. So we're going to be learning about forms shortly. Post requests usually have a body which contains data that the server processes and stores in some fashion. Some common situations that use post are signing into a website, sending an email via a web-based email client, and making an online purchase. Headers. There are quite a few request headers, but only a few will be useful to us. The host, the domain name or IP address of the server the request should be sent to. This is where it's been sent. We're requesting information from this domain, this website, launchcode.com. So when we put in the URL, we type in www.launchcode.org, we're sending out a request for a server to send us back this web page. We have something that's called a user agent, accept, and content type. You're going to see this a lot, a content type. So with the user agent, it's going to talk about information about the client, usually a browser, making the request. The example is for a version of Firefox on a Mac. Here we go. Here's some examples of what that looks like. Accept is the type of data that the client is willing to accept in the response body, which this what the example look like. And then the content type, the type of data included in the request body, usually only used for post request, usually. So there's other use cases, but we use this in post request, and we will understand that more. And this is something you're going to see: application, JSON application, and XML. So definitely get familiar with these terms. Body. The optional request body may contain any data whatsoever, though it often includes form data submitted via a post request. For example, when signing into a website, the request body will contain your username and password. We will later learn that it can obtain other data formats such as XML and JSON. As mentioned above, GET requests generally do not have a body. Okay, check your understanding. We've made it to the end of this section, and we're talking about the request. Now we're going to get ready to go into the response. Again, the more you do, the more you improve. See you in the next video.